This is the worst question. I don't like it, but it's bound to come up, so we need to be prepared for it. Hey everyone, this is Andrew the PA. One of the most difficult parts of the application process is the interview. So today we're going to go over some common interview questions, how to answer them, and some general tips and tricks on how to be memorable and have a phenomenal interview. Let's get to it. First question, tell us about yourself. What they're really asking is, prove to us that you are a normal, down-to-earth person and that you're not crazy. I know it sounds silly, but the schools really want to bring in people who are going to make them look good once you've graduated, and those people are down to earth and of course not crazy. So how do you prove this about yourself? Well, just use this template. First, talk about where you're from, where you were born and raised. Second, talk about your undergraduate school, where you went, and of course your undergraduate degree. Third, talk about just a little story about when you decided to become a physician assistant, when and why. Fourth, what you're doing now for work. This is typically going to be hours that are going to count towards PA school. Then fifth, what you were doing prior to becoming or prior to applying to PA school. Your last sentence should be something like, and now I'm really excited to be interviewing here with you. For example, I'm Andrew. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I went to XYZ College, which is also in the Los Angeles area, and I graduated with a degree in philosophy. And I originally decided to become a physician assistant after my friend told me about their PA and they just loved them. And I thought, hey, that sounds just like me. So I, of course, decided to apply. Currently, I'm working as a physical therapist aide, and I've been doing that for about 2 years. Prior to all of this, I was living in Asia. I was living abroad for about 3 years. And now I'm here and I'm happy to be interviewing with you guys. All right, the second most likely question to come up is, why do you want to become a physician assistant? And this is the worst question. I don't like it, but it's bound to come up, so we need to be prepared for it. What they're really saying is, why become a physician assistant as opposed to a medical doctor or a nurse practitioner, which have very similar roles? So you need to show that you've researched the difference between these three professions and then highlight the very subjective positive attributes of being a PA. Here's a list of a couple positive attributes of being a PA. PA school is only 2 years, and this is an okay thing to say. PA school is only 2 years versus medical school, which is at least 4, and then of course residency after that. PAs are required to have a supervising physician, and you could use that to your advantage and say, I love to work as a team. Anytime you say the word team player, it's going to be brownie points for you during the interview. And interestingly, if you want to go into surgery, there are actually less restrictions for PAs in surgery than there are for nurse practitioners. Nurse practitioners, as the law stands now, have to do an extra course or an extra certification that PAs do not have to do before going into surgery. Try to avoid saying that PAs have a better work-life balance, because in my experience, that's just not true. In my experience, PAs work just as hard as medical doctors, sometimes even longer hours, and this makes sense because our job is to take the workload off the doctors and put it on us. Do share your personal story about when you decided to become a PA or when you knew you would become a PA. That's that aha or that epiphany moment, and I'm willing to bet your interviewer shared an epiphany moment when they were younger too. It's a good way to connect with your interviewer, and connection is always a good thing. It's okay to tell the truth. Most of us become PAs because it really truly helps people, because it's financially stable and it's only 2 years of school. These are probably the same reasons that your interviewer decided to become a PA as well. So tell the truth. All right, third question. Tell us about a time that you got into a disagreement with a colleague or a coworker. What was the disagreement about and what was the resolution? Now this question seems very straightforward on the surface. Show us that you have problem-resolving skills. But the deeper question is here, prove to us that you have critical thinking skills. Meaning to say, show that you actually sit and think about every possible option and that you think about the consequences of any action taken. And this is really important because when you first start practicing, there's going to be a lot of situations where you don't know what to do and you will make mistakes. The schools want to know that you're going to take the time to sit and think about every possible action when you don't know what to do and that you will actually choose the right one. Now, if you don't have a story, make one up. If you do have a story, of course, use that because real stories are always better. But if you don't have a story, then you can use one of these 3 examples. Either your colleague was doing something illegal or wrong. 2, your colleague was trying to get you to do something illegal or wrong. Or 3, your colleague was being extremely rude, abrasive, and causing a scene. So for example, you could say something like, I thought about just letting it go, but if that was the case, somebody might get hurt or the practice might look bad. So I knew they had to be talked to, but should that be me? Should it be my manager? Should it be somebody else? At the time, my manager was pretty reactive, so I thought I would be the best person to talk to them. Now, what's the best way to talk to this person? I made sure it was very lighthearted. I made sure that it was non-accusatory, and of course it was private, away from anybody else. In the end, the resolution was that we just had a conversation and they said they didn't want to do it anymore, so that was good. But really, I did a good job of thinking about every possible scenario and really deciding that the best resolution was for me to talk to them. All right, question 4, the hypothetical. 3 patients are a candidate for a heart transplant, but only 1 heart is available. The 3 people are an elderly woman, an ex-convict, and a teenager. How do you decide which person gets the heart? What they really want to know is, can you make a difficult decision when there is no clear right answer, and then take responsibility for that decision? And remember, there is no right answer. So choose a person and then think of a justification for that person. It doesn't really matter what the justification is, so long as you can defend it. For example, we'll choose the teenager because his young, healthy body has the best chance of survival after the transplant. Now here comes the hard part. Typically, once you've given your answer, the interviewer will make you think that your answer was wrong. So in this case, they might say, okay, you chose the teenager, but it turns out they cannot afford the anti-rejection medications necessary after surgery. Do you want to change your answer? No, you do not want to change your answer. Again, it doesn't really matter the justification, and it doesn't matter that they're trying to make you feel bad about your answer. What they want to see is that you can take responsibility for your decision. So stick with your answer and continue trying to justify it. When I was asked a similar question like this, I said something like, although no life is expendable, the teenager really has the best chance of survival here, so I'm sticking with the teenager. Again, the justification doesn't matter. They just want to see that you can stick with your answer and own it. Now, to some degree, you can make up stories about these hypothetical characters because they're not real. So try to make a dialogue or a story that's beneficial to you or that makes your decision look better. All right, question 5. Why do you want to go to our school in particular? What this question is really asking is, have you done research on our school? Now, for many of us, the true answer here is that we don't care about getting into one school in particular. We just want to be accepted into a school. Please let me become a PA. Now, of course, you can't say this out loud, so instead, show that you've done some research on their school in particular. So go online and find the school's mission statement. Every school has one, and this is what you should lead with in your answer. Then just find one other thing that's unique to that school in particular and then mention it. It doesn't matter what the thing is. It could be location. It could be that the school has a brand new cadaver lab. It could be that you talked to current students and they're saying that the faculty and staff are great and very supportive and this is the kind of environment that you want to be in. Again, it doesn't matter what it is, just find something unique about that school and then mention it. So you could say something like this: I really became interested in your school after I read the mission statement. Adherence to excellence is something that I've always strived for in my life, and so it really resonated with me when I saw it on your website. Also, I'm quite interested in cardiology, and I noticed a lot of your students do rotations at the hospital down the street, which of course is a leader in cardiology. So because of this, I think your school is going to be the best environment for me to grow and learn and become the physician assistant that I want to become. And lastly, here's some general tips that I wish I knew before I interviewed. Firstly, remember that your interviewers are people, and people want to connect. So in any way that you can connect with your interviewer, your chances go up of getting into school. And people connect to authenticity and to vulnerability. All right, tip number 2, try to keep your hands as visible as possible as long as it's not awkward to do so. If you're in a chair, put your hands on the sides here. If you're at a table, fold your hands in front of you. Keeping your hands in front is a really good way to show that you are professional. Tip number 3, try not to compare yourself to the other people there who are also interviewing. Every single person there is going to feel inferior to the person sitting next to them. It's natural. This is how we react in stressful situations as humans. So when you have this feeling, acknowledge it, put it in the back of your mind, and then refocus on yourself and focus on the interview. All right, tip number 4. If you're asked a question and you really don't have an answer, take an audible breath and then say, please give me a second while I think about this. There's going to be an awkward pause there, and that's okay. Silence is not a bad thing. It's going to feel bad in the moment, but actually it's probably a good thing because the interviewer will be impressed that you actually took a second to think about it. So don't be afraid to ask for a moment to think. All right, tip 5. At the very end, they are probably going to ask you, do you have any questions for us? The answer is yes, you do have questions. When you have questions, it shows that you are genuinely interested in that particular school. Remember, they're not just being nice to you. This is still an interview question. This is still a test. So, a couple questions you could ask them are, what do you think is the strongest aspect of this school? Or do alumni of this school tend to gravitate towards one specialty or another? Try to avoid questions that can be answered by doing some research on their website. So for example, don't ask what percentage of students graduate every year, because this is an answer you can find on their website. Lastly, practice answering questions out loud. Saying things out loud is a different skill than thinking and knowing them, and it's something you have to practice. Now, it's best to practice in front of people because, of course, you're going to be in front of another person when you have the interview. So ask a person to sit with you and just say your answers out loud. It will not seem rehearsed, it will not seem disingenuous, and in fact, it will actually make you seem more prepared and more professional. The next best way to practice is in the mirror. Say things out loud and you can actually see how you come off when you look in the mirror. Now again, it's really important to say things out loud. I can't stress this enough. So make sure you do so. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Becoming a PA is a difficult process, but it's doable, so keep pushing. Look for me on social media and hopefully see you guys next video. Take care.